Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My fingers slipped on the deadbolt, and the latch clicked anyway. I stared at the door gap like it was a dare. I'm Maya, 28, and I knew I was not alone. My throat tightened because I recognized that silence. I pulled the door shut, then stopped halfway through. A soft scrape came from inside, like someone adjusting their weight. I backed off and my heel hit the porch step wrong. Pain flashed up my leg and I still did not scream. I dragged my phone out and opened the camera first. Not the emergency screen, because my brain did that stupid thing. I hit record, then forced myself to breathe once. The knob turned from the other side, slow and patient. I should have run to a neighbor right then. I didn't, and I hate admitting that part. I held my phone low and pushed the door wider. The hallway swallowed the sound, and something moved again. I stepped in with my keys between my fingers. Yeah, I know that sounds like a bad movie. I had nothing else, and fear makes you pick dumb tools. My foot touched the floor and a floorboard answered back. I froze, then heard a swallow in the dark. It was close, too close for comfort. My hand flew to the light switch, then stopped midair. If I lit him up, he would know exactly where I stood. I slid sideways, keeping the wall at my back. My phone shook, the video jittering like a confession. A shadow shifted near the kitchen entry. He was waiting for me to commit. I whispered, "Get out." My voice came out thin, almost polite. No answer, just a quiet exhale that felt practiced. That calm hit me harder than a shout. I took one step back toward the door. The door moved behind me, not by wind. It eased shut with care, like someone tucking in a kid. My stomach dropped and my hand went cold. "Why are you here?" I asked, louder this time. A shape leaned forward and I caught a sliver of his face. He smiled like we had plans, like I owed him time. The phone in my hand kept recording that smile. I tried to bolt for the lock, but he cut me off. Not a tackle, just a fast shift into my path. He raised one hand, palm out, like he was calming me down. That gesture made my skin crawl. "Don't do that," he murmured, and my blood turned to ice. He knew how to sound gentle, which made it worse. I backed toward the laundry door without looking. My fingers brushed a metal canister and I clung to it. I yanked it free and hugged it to my chest. My brain finally caught up and screamed, "Now or never." I thumbed the pin and it fought me for a second. He took one step forward and I heard his shoes scuff. "Put that down," he warned, like I was the problem. He reached out, slow enough to look reasonable on camera. I jerked back and slammed the lever with both hands. The burst hit his face and he inhaled at the worst moment. He coughed once, then twice, then it turned ugly. He clawed at his throat like it surprised him. His eyes went wide and his knees buckled toward the tile. That sound he made, wet and sharp, stuck in my head. I didn't stop spraying until my arm burned. Then I dropped the extinguisher like it was on fire. I rushed past him, shoulder brushing his jacket, and I ran. Behind me, he wheezed my name like a promise. I slapped my neighbor's doorbell until my palms stung. When it opened, I shoved my hands up like proof. "Call 911, my voice cracked, and I hated that. She stared past me like she expected him to appear. I paced the sidewalk and kept checking the street. My lungs felt tight, like I was borrowing air. My screen still showed a shaky video, and I almost dropped it. I could not tell if that was smart or stupid. My neighbor tried to pull me inside. I stayed outside anyway because I needed sightlines. "Did you see him?" I kept asking like she had answers. She whispered, "Who is he?" and my stomach twisted. Sirens finally cut through the quiet, fast and sharp. Two officers stepped out, hands near their belts. I pointed at my place like it might bite them too. "Someone is in there," the words tasted unreal. One officer asked for my name and I gave it. My mouth ran ahead, then my brain slammed on brakes. Back door was open, I forced myself to stop babbling. The other officer's eyes narrowed, like he already doubted me. They moved in and I stayed on the steps. I heard commands, then a harsh cough from inside. A third voice tried to sound calm, almost friendly. That fake calm made my knees wobble. "Ma'am, come here," an officer waved me forward. I edged closer and saw him on my kitchen floor. His shirt was dusted and he kept clearing his throat. He looked up and smiled like we shared a joke. "Babe, tell them it's fine," his tone tried to anchor me. I flinched so hard my shoulder hit the wall. One officer glanced at me, then at him, then back. The pause felt like a coin toss. "You know her?" the officer asked him, flat and firm. He nodded fast and wiped his mouth with his sleeve. "We're together," he coughed Aga. In then held up his wrists. "Ask her." His eyes dared me to lie. I wanted to scream, but I kept it tight. "No," I held my screen out, thumb hovering over the gallery. "You want proof?" My voice steadied, and that surprised me. Then his smile twitched just for a beat. I scrolled through messages, one after another, all blocked now. He had written my work hours like a schedule. He had listed places I stop like I was an errand. The officer's face changed, and I clung to that. He tried to laugh it off like it was flirting. "Come on," I was worried. He made his voice soft. I snapped, "You broke in." My words came out too loud. His eyes flashed and the room went colder. "Why did you have an extinguisher on him?" the officer asked. I pointed at the powder trail and swallowed hard. "Because he stepped toward me." My hands shook anyway. I watched their eyes track the mess, then track him. He raised his hands again, slow and careful. "I had a key." He said it like that settled everything. The officer turned to me, and I felt my stomach drop. "A key," the word hit like a punch. I shook my head, then hesitated, and that pause betrayed me. "I don't give keys out." I heard how defensive it sounded. He smirked like my tone was his evidence now. The officer asked, "Are you sure?" and my face burned. "They asked me to check my key ring." I dumped it into my hand and counted twice. Everything looked normal, and that scared me more. Because it meant he did not need my main set. One officer stepped closer, voice lower. "Any spare hidden outside?" He kept it casual. I opened my mouth, then stopped because I knew the answer. And I hated that I had to say it out loud. "There's a spare." My tongue felt thick. I gave the location, and the officer nodded once. He walked out and I followed at a distance. My heart kicked harder with every step. He came back holding nothing, just an empty hand. He didn't need to speak, his face said enough. The man on my floor stopped coughing and started smiling again. That was when I realized this was only the first layer. I ripped open the little rock by the steps and found air. My fingers dug through dirt like it could answer me. Nothing, no spare, no stupid little safety net. That empty spot felt louder than the sirens ever did. I went straight to the hardware store and bought new locks. Not because I felt brave, because I felt cornered. I paid too fast and kept scanning the parking lot. Every stranger's glance started to look like a signal. Back home, I shoved a chair under the knob anyway. Yeah, I had new locks coming and I still did that. Fear makes you stack layers, even dumb ones. I kept listening for that soft step sound again. I walked room to room with my shoes still on. I checked windows, then checked them again, slower. I pulled curtains back and searched corners like a lunatic. I hated myself for turning my own home into a threat. Then I noticed the vent cover in the hall was tilted. It was slight, like someone nudged it with a knuckle. I crouched, touched the edge, and felt it shift. My heart kicked hard because I never touched that thing. I grabbed my phone and called Tessa with shaking hands. When she answered, I blurted, "Can you come now?" She didn't ask for details, she just said, "I'm on my way." That quick yes almost made me cry. While I waited, I started taking photos like evidence mattered. Lock, window, vent, every weird mark I could find. I forced myself to speak out loud like a witness. "Not normal, not mine." The words steadied me a little. Tessa showed up and walked in like she owned the place. She looked at the chair under the knob and snorted. "Okay," she rolled up her sleeves like this was work. Her calm made me feel exposed, like I was overreacting again. We moved through the house with a simple rule. If it shifts, we stop. If it's wrong, we document. She kept her voice low, but her jaw stayed tight. That look on her face told me she believed me. In the living room, she knelt near the window frame. "Come here." Her finger traced a faint smear on the sill. It wasn't dramatic, just a dull scuff where skin had rubbed. My brain supplied the rest, and I hated the picture it drew. I tried to explain it away because that's my flaw. "Maybe it's old." My voice sounded thin even to me. Tessa stared at me until I shut up. "Old doesn't line up with tonight." Her tone cut clean. We checked the outside latch and found a shallow scratch. Not from weather, from something thin and deliberate. I felt my face go hot like I'd been outplayed. He didn't just enter, he rehearsed. Tessa asked, "Do you have a list of who knows you?" I laughed once, sharp and ugly, then stopped myself. Too many, the truth tasted like metal in my mouth. And I realized he only needed one weak link. We pulled up the video I recorded, frame by frame. Tessa paused on his wrist and pointed at a small mark. Look, there was a tiny SC. Like he'd scraped a window edge. That detail made my skin crawl because it matched the smear. I called the non-emergency line and asked what happens next. The dispatcher kept it polite, and that politeness felt useless. They told me to file more documentation and stay alert. Stay alert sounded like a joke, and I wanted to scream. That night I slept on the couch with my shoes nearby. Tessa took the other end and kept her phone in her hand. I stared at the ceiling and tried to count breaths. Around 2 a.m. my porch sensor pinged once. The porch sensor pinged again, then went silent. I shot up from the couch and gripped my screen. Tessa jolted awake and mouthed, "Again." I nodded, and my pulse started racing for real. We crept to the front window and stayed low. Nothing moved outside, and that made it worse. No footsteps, no engine, no normal reason. My brain kept whispering, "He's testing you." Tessa pointed at the door and shook her head hard. She mimed locking, then mimed calling for help. I lifted my phone and started filming without thinking. If he showed up, I wanted his face on record. The sensor pinged a third time. This time it was closer together, like quick taps. Tessa's jaw tightened and she grabbed my wrist. "Do not open anything," she hissed, eyes wide. I backed into the hallway and felt the wall guide me. My hands were clumsy, like they belonged to someone else. I typed the non-emergency number, then hesitated. What if they told me I was overreacting again? A soft click came from the backside of the house. Not loud, not dramatic, just a small mechanical sound. Tessa pointed toward the laundry door and froze. I swallowed and realized he was inside the yard. I moved toward the kitchen without turning lights on. I hated myself for even caring about that detail. But light would outline me, and he loved control. I kept my phone low and listened for the next move. There was a brief scrape near the back window. Then a pause, like someone holding their breath. I looked at Tessa and she shook her head fast. Her eyes said, "Stay still because he's waiting." My front room went dark all at once. The power cut like someone flipped a switch outside. Tessa muttered nope and reached for her phone. The dead screen glare told us the router was down too. A sharp pop sounded from the back, then a soft crunch. That was glass, and my body reacted before my mind. I backed into the hall corner and put my shoulders against it. I forced my breathing slow because panic makes noise. Tessa raised 2 fingers, then pointed to me. "You call, you stay safe," that was her plan. I dialed 911, and the call failed immediately. My throat tightened because that felt intentional. The next sound was careful footwork inside my kitchen. Not hurried, not lost, like he had done this before. I felt my teeth pressed together, hard enough to hurt. He wasn't sneaking anymore, he was arriving. Tessa mouthed basement, then shook her head. We didn't have time for an escape route debate. I started recording again, camera facing the kitchen entry. If I could not stop him, I could at least capture him. A whisper slid through the dark, close and smug. "Come on," his voice sounded like a private joke. I held my phone steady and kept my feet planted. I hated that I recognized the rhythm of his words. Tessa stepped forward, 1 foot at a time. She raised her palm toward him like a stop sign. "Leave," her voice did not shake, and mine almost did. He laughed under his breath, and that laugh made me furious. "You got me in trouble," his tone turned sour fast. He moved closer and his shoes brushed the tile softly. I backed a half step, then stopped, forcing myself firm. I needed him close enough to be undeniable. Tessa angled her body between us, tense but steady. He tried to drift around her like water around a rock. I shifted too, keeping the camera on him the whole time. He noticed the lens and his smile thinned. "Put that away," he lifted a finger toward my hand. I did not answer because answers give him space. He took another step and the air changed instantly. That was the moment he decided he owned the room. Tessa snapped back up and she shoved his shoulder. He staggered, then grabbed her wrist with quick precision. My stomach flipped because that was not a bluff. He tightened his grip like he had done it before. I lunged and yanked the extinguisher from the laundry area. Yeah, the same one because I never put it back. I pulled the pin with shaking fingers and aimed high. He saw it and started to speak like he could talk me down. I squeezed the handle and the powder blasted his face. He inhaled mid-word and his body seized instantly. His hand flew to his throat and his grip on Tessa broke. Tessa stumbled back, eyes wide, and I kept spraying. He dropped to one knee, coughing hard then harder. The sound turned wet and desperate, like air wouldn't cooperate. Age. He tried to crawl away, then he tried to rise again. I stepped closer because I needed him pinned. Tell me why you're here, my voice came out sharp. He gagged and shook his head, then tried to laugh. The laugh died fast, replaced by frantic swallowing. I held the camera steady and waited for words. He rasped, "You wanted me," then doubled over. I felt anger surge, hot and clean like fuel. No, I took a step forward and aimed again. His eyes widened and he finally understood fear. Tessa grabbed my sleeve and shook her head once. I knew what she meant, stop before it looks bad. I eased off the handle, then raised my phone again. He sucked air in ragged pulls and his voice broke open. I have a key, the confession came out rough. He coughed, then forced out another line between gasps. I made one, his eyes flicked to the back door. That detail hit me hard because it meant planning. I leaned in just enough for the camera to catch him. Say it again, my voice sounded colder than I felt. He glared, then choked and repeated it slower. Tessa stared at me like she didn't recognize me. A siren wailed somewhere far off, then closer. He heard it too and tried to scoot backward fast. I stepped in front of him, blocking the path. He stared up at me, breathless and furious, and whispered my name. The bailiff held out his hand, and I gave him my flash drive. My fingers shook, and I hated that weakness on display. Across the room, he stared like I owed him mercy. The judge nodded once, and the screen lit up anyway. The first clip played with my shaky breathing loud in the audio. You could hear him wheeze before you even saw him. He tried to look bored, but his jaw kept flexing. Then his own voice filled the room and he flinched. Say it again, that was me, sharp and flat. I cringed hearing it because it sounded cold. His reply came out broken, and the words still landed. I made one, the sentence hit the courtroom like a slap. His attorney stood fast, palms out, trying to soften it. Panic, confusion, the usual tidy excuses. The judge leaned forward, eyes locked on the timestamp. Then the prosecutor asked for the second clip. The second clip caught his grip on Tessa's wrist. I saw her stumble again and my chest tightened hard. He shifted in his seat like the chair hurt him. The judge's face changed and it did not change back. He tried a new story once the video ended. We were dating, he lifted his chin like a victim. I barked out a laugh, then stopped because it sounded unhinged. That laugh made the judge look at me and I went still. The prosecutor slid printed screenshots toward the bench. Dates, times, my work schedule typed by his hands. He watched the papers move like they were poison. Then he whispered something to his attorney, too fast to read. The judge asked me to speak, and my mouth went dry. I stood anyway because sitting felt like surrender. I kept telling him no, my voice cracked then steadied. And he kept treating that like negotiation, I added and heard myself. He started shaking his head, dramatic and disgusted. Lies, he mouthed it at me, not even quietly. I looked straight at him and did not blink. That tiny stare down felt risky, like poking a bruise. The judge ordered a no-contact condition on the spot. Hearing that should have felt like relief, but it didn't. Because he smiled anyway, small and private, like he had time. I realized rules do not scare someone like him. After the hearing, Tessa walked me to my car. She kept scanning the lot like she expected movement. You did what you had to do, her voice stayed firm. I nodded, but my hands kept twitching against my jeans. That night my screen buzzed with a blocked number alert. No message came through, just the attempt. I stared at it until my eyes watered, then took a screenshot. Even silence felt like a hand on my shoulder. A week later, the detective called with a blunt update. They found a copied key in his backpack during intake. They also found my address written 2 different ways. He had planned for mistakes, and that detail kept me awake. Here's the part that sits wrong in my chest. In that hallway, I pushed him to talk while he struggled. Not forever, not enough to kill him, just enough to trap him. Some nights I hear that rasp again, and I wonder what it turned me into.